This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 326 for Wednesday, July 17th, 2019. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. And joining me this afternoon is Megan Townsend back again. You can find her at Megan Townsend on all the social media that matters. Hello, my friend.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm exhausted. In a good way. I've been doing the kind of things that are good to do. It's a good exhaustion. I've just been busy. I've been doing a lot of hiking and a lot of running, trying to get things in ahead of yet another heat wave that's coming our way. The next couple of days are going to be super, super warm.
I'm not excited.
Yeah, so I did my run this morning at 6 a.m., which is not normally my go-to. I used to do this years ago, all through my 20s. Up every day, 6:30, 7 o'clock, go for a run, get ready for work, and then leave for work at like 8 o'clock sort of thing. And it was great. I always felt like wide awake when I was on the bus. Like I always enjoyed that. But I have, of course, over the last 10 years as a freelancer, been working from home. Which means I don't have to get up at 6 a.m. to get the workout in before work day. I could really do it at any time and then just roll right into work, and it's fine. But I've also found that with all the sitting that I do for my job, that a noontime workout is better because it's a nice way to break up the day. I don't feel like I've been sitting all day. Like it's kind of shakes out the sits from all morning, right?
Yeah.
And also when it's colder weather, noontime run is the warmest time of the day. So if you're running in the fall, it's beautiful. It's nice. You don't have to worry about it being like, minus 12 unless it's January. And I don't tend to run when it's icy. So all that said, this was the first time that I've been up and out for a jog at 6 a.m. in a very long time. And while I enjoyed it, I'm tired. Now that it's a few hours later, I'm just like, wow, okay. I'm a little bit zonked right now.
Probably smart to do today, though, because it's going to be, I know we're not supposed to talk about the weather, but it's also like really, really warm today, or it's going to be anyway, apparently.
Oh, there's a heat warning today. It would be unsafe to work out midday today. If I was to run during the day today, I would wait until after dinner or 6 o'clock or something like that. So it just when the temperature is 35 degrees and if it's sunny as well with the humidity, like it's just dangerous. Like your body temperature gets up too high and it's just not
not safe. And it's not
a good idea. No, it's really uncomfortable. And it takes you forever to cool down. Right? Like forever. Like at least this morning it was like 18 degrees. It was muggy. It was still a sweaty day, but it's not running in that weather is still pleasant because like once you're moving there's a cool breeze, and my run takes me down by the water, so like there's a lot of advantages to going at that time of the morning. And that's why I did it, is because the next couple days it's just going to be too warm to do anything really, outside of just like stay in my studio with the air conditioner on, which is what I plan to do.
Yep.
Because I have work to do.
Man, we like recently bought another fan, like a new fan, for the apartment. So like the fan that I used to have in my room was just like a window unit, broke forever ago. So in the summertime, whenever my roommate was like out during the day, she would just take her fan from up in her room and put it downstairs. She recently bought a new fan. So she keeps the new one in her room, and now we have like a fan in the living room, which is really, really nice. But it does nothing. Like it just kind of like circulates the air a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But it has been like grossly hot. Like I don't deal well with heat, like extreme heat. I think a couple days ago it was like 21 degrees or like just 20 degrees, no humidity.
Mm-hmm.
That was perfect.
Yeah.
That was perfect. It was like I could wear like a dress if I wanted to with a jacket, or like I think I went for a walk that day, so it was like sport clothes, like athleisure stuff.
Yeah.
But it was perfect. It was beautiful. It was still sunny, like not cloudy, but like there were clouds in the sky, and it was just the perfect temperature, the perfect day. So good. I want every summer day to be like that because it was still nice enough to go to the beach, but it was also still one of those nights where it's like, you know what, this would be a good bonfire night. And that's
Yeah.
what I want summers to be all the time. This is just like I just want to peel off my skin because I'm so hot and I hate everything. Like that's what it
Yeah.
feels like.
I don't like the heat either. I tend to get overly warm and it's
Uh,
uncomfortable for me. And I mean, I don't care if I'm out at the beach or if I'm out for a hike because I'm going to be moving around and any kind of activity, I'm going to get sweaty anyway, so it doesn't matter.
yeah.
But when you're in the city, when you're trying to work or just go somewhere, run errands, like it just
Or just exist.
it's yeah, you're just trying to not die. Yeah, like it's gross. And we've been getting more and more of these heat warnings and more and more of these like heat waves over the last few years here, which I mean is it's not happening at like an alarming rate, but it's certainly noticeable. Like I remember
Mm,
years ago, well even we'd have some hot days when I was a kid, but really throughout my life here in Nova Scotia, it's not been this warm for consistent stretches. Like you might
yeah.
get like one day where it might be just like this weird system is just kind of like the perfect storm of like fog and humidity and sunshine, and you end up with like a super hot day. But we've
Yeah.
been seeing humidex temperatures that are approaching 40. This is
Yeah.
Canada, like that, and
That's
and
insane.
and not and we're not northern Canada, but the Maritimes is much farther north than say Toronto. Uh,
Yeah.
and Nova Scotia is surrounded on seven sides by water because it is nearly an island. So
Yeah.
you'd think that it would be a lot colder in the North Atlantic than this. But yeah, so there's actually a few things that I've got to point out later on in the Internet Minute, which is a fun tease that point towards this kind of stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where it's definitely been noticeable. I remember last year we had a very long heat wave in the
Yeah.
end
Well,
of
I
July.
think I remember coming. Well, that's when I came back from China,
Right.
and I was just like, this is like China levels of heat. Like it was, and China was warm. Like China was disgustingly warm. And then coming back, I was like, no, I brought it all with me. I was so excited to like escape the crazy Chinese humidity and the heat and come back to like relatively comfortable but warm, like but breezy
Yeah,
Nova Scotia.
breezy. That's the thing.
And that didn't happen. It was like, well, and even if it was breezy, it was still hot. It was like hot air just blowing around
Hmm.
everywhere.
Yeah, it was like it's like you'd expected it to be a hurricane or something. That the air was
Yeah.
that humid. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a nice breeze when you and I went on a hike in Prospect
Uh,
here
so
last
nice.
week, I guess. Well, the fourth. It was July 4th, I think we went. Because it's been a couple weeks of podcasting since then. But yeah, like there was a nice breeze that day.
Yeah, it was beautiful. We were also right by the water too. Like we were
Hmm.
right on the coast,
Yeah.
down in the south of Nova Scotia, and it was beautiful. I'd never been down there before.
I don't know if I have been either. I mean, I've certainly driven down Prospect Road before, and I've been down to Peggy's Cove a number of times, and some of the other hikes that I've been on are down that way.
Oh, I've been
But
down to Peggy's Cove, but I've
yeah,
never been any further than that. That's probably the furthest I've been.
right. Yeah. It's hard because a lot of times for me, like I'm seeking out hikes that usually take the better part of a day, like the one that we did. That was a good 3 hour hike. But
Yeah.
then like I also don't want to spend 3 hours in the car to get to some place like really pretty down the South Shore to hike for a couple hours, then to get back in the car for 3 hours to come home. Like it just
Yeah, no.
there's a certain range at which you're just like, like I don't want to. I don't want to drive too far because sometimes the hikes are not long enough. Like I'm struggling to find hikes close enough to the city that are long enough. Like it's like, oh, this one's only an hour and a half away, but like the hike's only 5 kilometers. Like that's like maybe 2 hours at best, right?
Yeah.
Depending on who I'm hiking with. So I want to have more of an excursion. I have a couple. That I have my eye on in the Musquodoboit Valley area, the River Valley area there, but they're longer hikes, so I have to, it's either myself or I have to try and find somebody that's a little bit more, experienced and stuff like that to go,
Mm.
because they're like 20 kilometers or more, so they'd be basically twice as long as what you and I did there on
Wow.
on the fourth. But
I don't think I'm ready for that yet.
no, and this is the thing. Like, I mean, if and that's the thing. I've got lots of friends that like you and Colin. They're just like, hey, we've never hiked before, but we'd like to try it, and that was a great introductory hike. Like
Yeah, it was. It
it
was
was
gorgeous.
yeah, it was beautiful. It wasn't too hot. It was we'll say fairly clearly marked, but
Yeah.
we got a little bit turned around. But it was a pretty straightforward, and there's some ups and downs, but you're not climbing a mountain. And
No,
we even added an extra clip onto it. It was probably only supposed to be about 8 kilometers, and we did like 9 and a bit.
I think
And
so.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's one of the reasons why I haven't had a whole lot to talk about on the show is because I've been doing a lot of hiking. So there was High Head with you, and then this past Sunday I hiked Duncan's Cove, and I know I've talked about Duncan's Cove on the podcast before. Probably the last time I hiked it last year in
I feel like
September.
you have, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a pretty hike, and it was really cool because I went out with Peyton, who used to do this show with me, his wife Lee, and their son Ewan. And so that was fun because Ewan had never been on a hike like that before. Peyton and Lee had been there once, but like 15 years ago,
Right.
and Peyton had never been out that way. So they really enjoyed it. It was a great kind of like good level. Ewan's only 10, and he did the whole thing. Like we had a few stops for snacks, but like we did that was a nearly a 6 kilometer hike, and there's a lot of elevation change. I think the last time I checked,
Wow.
it was an elevation change of like 250 meters or something over the course of
What?
the hike.
Ours was like what, 82
82
meters?
or something like that. Yeah.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, Duncan's Cove
That's
is like a lot
crazy.
of ups and downs. It's a lot of ups and downs. It's beautiful
Wow.
and it's worth it, but it yeah, your calves are definitely feeling it at the end of the day. But we had a good time, and there was the conversation. Eventually, I had to change the subject because there was a lot of like, who would win in a fight, Hulk or Thor? And then you'd answer the question, and then it's like, okay, well then who would win in a fight, Thor? And then insert other Marvel character here, and the chain would just go on.
On and on and on
And he's
forever.
kind of,
That's cute.
he's like, Joel, I got a question. Okay, but it has to be a different question. Silence. It's like you were not prepared for that.
No.
No, but it was funny. Yeah, it was.
That's cute.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was
think I've
cute.
ever. No, I've met Ewan one time.
Yeah, he was at my birthday party. Yeah, you've met him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it was good. It was I spent the whole day with Peyton and Lee, and I saw Peyton at my birthday, but I haven't seen Lee in ages. So to spend a really solid amount of time with them and catch up was great. And that's
Mm.
kind of what I've been leaning into the last little while because while there has been a few more new things on Netflix that I'm interested in, I just have not been spending that much time inside, save for the odd rainy day or day where it's too hot to be outside. Most of the time, I'm just like instead of eating dinner in front of the TV, I'm eating dinner outside on the deck. So I'm not consuming as much media. But I thought, hikes are kind of geeky. There's lots of people that are into that kind of stuff. So whenever I go on one, I'm probably going to communicate communicate that here on the
Yeah.
podcast. Because there might be some people that are local that are listening and that are looking for trails, or people that are maybe visiting Nova Scotia. I mean, I know there's people across Canada that listen, and they might
Yeah,
they
for
might be
sure.
out this way. So, but yeah, Duncan's Cove is really close to the city. High Head is a little bit of a farther drive, but not terribly far. You and I think, took what 45 minutes to get there, an hour maybe,
Yeah.
and most of that was in the city. I think like once we get outside the city, we arrived a lot faster than we thought.
Yeah. Well, coming back, we're like, oh, we're already back. Cool. Like, I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it was getting, because we kind of hit rush hour traffic trying to get out of the city.
Hmm.
But then, it was pretty smooth. We got a little turned around trying to find the place because it was marked. I feel like it was marked one way, but not the other. I feel like the way we were coming, it was not marked. And then when we finally turned around, we're like, oh, there it is. There's a big ass sign. I don't think there was a sign in the other direction.
You're right. I don't think there was. The problem was that the sign was on the left hand side of the road, not the right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So,
that's
yeah.
how
So
I felt too.
yeah. So I don't think it was anyone's fault really, aside from city planning.
Well,
They
no,
just
and
didn't mark it
all of us
correctly.
we were talking in the car as we were going, and I didn't have my app open because I don't look at my phone when I drive. So there
Yeah.
was, like had we done, I was pretty confident I knew where I was going, but I didn't realize where the turnoff was or how much of a right angle it was going to be or how big of a
Hmm.
deal the highway is going to make of it. Turns out
Yeah.
once you get outside the main city and you're not on the main highways, they don't make a very big deal. It's like a road sign. It's like, oh, it goes that way. Oh, crap. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It's like it's tiny.
although I have to say I've used, Google Maps and stuff around here before to get to hiking trails and to find different places, and it's remarkable what you can do now. Like you can
Oh my God, it's way better.
Oh, it's really cool. Like
It's way better than it
you will
used
get
to be.
very, very accurate directions and even down to like you should approach your next exit in like, say 5 minutes or something like that. It's like, sure enough, there it
Mm.
is. Like it's that kind of stuff I find is very handy, especially when we're in a fairly remote part of the country. Once you get outside of Halifax, like you don't really think that, Google Maps is going to have everything mapped out here, but they really do have a lot of the back roads. Like getting to Gaff Point last year was tricky, and that's down in Lunenburg. And same thing, we got all the way there. It was not a big deal. I think it helps if any of your hikes are attached to a provincial park. They tend to have a little bit
Yeah.
more solid directions. But
No, for sure.
yeah, but all the stuff that I have been watching has been pretty low key and pretty short sessions. I have been checking out the second season of Three Below: The Tales of Arcadia on Netflix. This is the follow-up season to a follow-up series. So I've talked about Troll Hunters before, and I've watched all of those. Three Below is the next, I guess, chapter in the adventures of Arcadia Oaks, which is the town in this series. And there's aliens, and they've come and they're stranded on the planet, and they're royalty. And so this is the second season of their existence on the planet as they're trying to escape bounty hunters and an evil military overlord named Morando, who is trying to take over the throne. He's on the home planet that they're from. Aja and Krell are the two aliens, and Morando's trying to get rid of them because they're the last of the royal family.
Right.
And what I liked so much about season 2, and I won't get into any spoilers, is that it picks up right where season 1 left off. So there's no recap.
Oh, good. Okay.
There's not 2 episodes of fluff. Like it just jumps straight into, holy crap, there's bounty hunters. and what I like about it is that they throw the stuff all into the mix of Aja and Krell trying to have a summer as teenagers. So Aja's got a boyfriend, and Krell's trying to fix the mothership, and they've got all these things that they're trying to do with their free time. And these intergalactic bounty hunters who are trying to kill them are basically just like interrupting their fun. And they're kind of more upset that they're interrupting the fun than they are really being threatened. So it's just like,
That's kind of is this a cartoon or is it?
yeah. Oh, it's a
action?
cartoon. Yeah, absolutely. It's made
Okay.
by the same people that do Dragon Prince and Troll Hunters, and
Okay.
so it's a DreamWorks Netflix co-production. I don't think it's the
Okay.
same animation house because the animation in Dragon Prince is a little bit different. So
Right.
it's not cel shaded. It's a 3D. It looks like How to Train Your Dragon in terms of like the cartoon
Okay. So like
quality.
CGI.
Yeah, CGI, just the same kind of thing. But what I like so much about these the characters is that they're very imaginative. Like all the aliens are very odd looking, and they've got like 4 eyes, or they've got 6 legs, or something. And I can't remember the name of the Ardrenian. I can't remember the name of the species that Aja and Krell are. But they kind of have like a blue glowy kind of Tron look to them. So it lends
Okay.
itself very well to CG animation. It's very fun to watch because when they're fighting, they're using these serrator weapons, which can be a gun or a blaster or a blade or a whatever they want it to be, like a shield. I think Krell's turns his into like a surfboard that surfs in the sky sort of thing. So, and it's always like this bright blue neon energy weapon thing. And so that
Right.
lends itself really well to CG. It's very flashy and fun, and a lot of the fighting sequences and stuff have a lightsaber kind of feel to them. There's a lot of like hand to hand combat.
I
all
like
of the
that.
all of the alien bounty hunters have some sort of gimmick. I think some of the bounty hunters are robot rabbits, and they all go by like Fufu the Destroyer or Fufu the Terrible or whatever. So little rabbit
Amazing.
Fufu. Like yeah,
That's amazing.
it's
That's
so
actually
good.
really clever.
Yeah, and I had one of the best laugh out loud moments when like one of the littlest rabbits turns out to be one of the most dangerous, and he has like the deepest voice. So there's this great big hulking, robot rabbit, and has this squeaky voice, and then this little guy comes on the screen, and he's got like this big baritone, like I am Fufu the Destroyer, and he pulls out like a Gatling gun and just starts wailing on everybody. And I mean,
That's
it
I
was
love that
hilarious.
gag.
It's really hilarious, right?
That's
And
always my favorite gag in any show. If like it kind of reminds me of Up, where like the big scary dog has like the highest
oh
squeakiest voice.
yeah,
Like
because he swallowed
I
a
love
squeaky toy or
those.
something. Yeah.
No, like his collar, like his translation collar is kind of
Oh,
broken,
right.
right? So
Right.
I love that gag where like you see things that are big and scary and hulking and they have like quiet squeaky voices, and then things that are really really tall or small and like cute looking have like this big baritone. I don't know, it's great. I love that gag.
Yeah.
It never gets old to me.
That kind of stuff is great because there's a lot of clever writing that I really have to tip my hat. It's a lot of like we'll say one-liners about pop culture, the things that adults are gonna get more like something about like
Yeah.
Aja and Steve like kissing or something like that, and Krell making fun of them and like making fun of like a tongue joke or something like that, and really only the people that know what kissing is are gonna get that joke,
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that is kind of fun, and there's also like because they're aliens, they say a lot of stuff about like this really strange human tradition of like slumber party, like they're trying to find all these different ways to like lie and get out of the house and do these sci-fi adventure things, but they're supposed to be
Right.
behaving themselves as teenagers, like so. And they'll mispronounce stuff. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it gets a little bit old. Like some of the aliens call humans humans, and they mispronounce the word Earth a lot, which I think is kind of dumb. But other times it's like the slumber parties, or they'll they'll be talking about this slumber party after it's happened, and they'll get the name wrong.
Hmm.
It's like the sleeping bash or something, and then all the regular folks, all the regular teens from the town look at them like, what? Oh, slumber party. Like they just so,
Sleeping bash.
yeah, so like there's because they're trying to, they've got all these different words for the same things, right? So they're trying to fit in and they don't quite fit in.
Hmm.
So that kind of stuff I find good. I did find some of the other humor a little bit repetitive and not as funny. I find that I think they've got some feedback from season one where people really love Lug the dog, and Lug is an alien slug dog, and his face opens up in like six different ways, and like it's he's got is he looks like a flower when he opens his mouth. It's kind of
Oh
interesting.
yeah. It's kind of
Um,
like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things.
very similar, but
Yeah.
cute in a neon purple kind of way. A lot of drool, and he's it's a really cute gag, but they kind of overuse it so far in season two. In that when he goes to use the bathroom, like if you see a dog go over to a fire hydrant, that's kind of a common cartoon thing. Well, when Lou goes over to a fire hydrant, he shoots lasers out of his butt and he like cuts it in half. And that happened in season one. I mean, I nearly spat coffee everywhere. It was so, I was not expecting this, right? Because
That's cute.
everything about him at this point is that he's a dog, and they all have these holographic things that they put on so that they look like humans, and they turn Lug into a corgi when he's in his quote unquote Earth disguise. So you get this
Amazing.
corgi prancing around the town that's cutting fire hydrants in half with like butt lasers, right? So I mean, it's very funny, but I think they've used that gag like six times in the first three episodes of season two. It's like, okay, I get it. He shoots lasers out of his butt. It's not
Yeah.
as funny when you do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's a lot funnier when it's like you least expect it. And so that those kind of things I feel like they've been a little bit overdone. But other than that, I mean, and also those are jokes aren't aimed at me. Like those are aimed at the little kids that are
Yeah.
watching the cartoon.
Yeah.
It is a cartoon. I'm not forgetting that it's a cartoon. I have noticed the production value is skewed a little bit. It's still good, but I feel like a lot of the secondary characters, even the secondary characters that are part of the main show, like Aja's boyfriend Steve, Eli is one of the human characters. He's in it a fair bit, but he's in every episode, but he's in every episode in little parts. And the
Hmm.
animation on those characters is kind of phoned in. It's not very good, and it just kind of strikes me as like, well, these are the scenes that they shipped overseas, right? And then when you have a dramatic fight or you have a really interesting, touching moment with the main alien characters, it's always really well done. So you're like, there's a discrepancy here. Like you can tell when they're putting all their energy into one particular shot, and then another that just kind of gets done haphazardly. But
Hmm.
it's glaring to me because I'm an animator, or I have been an animator in the past, and I notice that kind of stuff right away. It's too bad because the show deserves better. Like they really, it's Netflix and DreamWorks. There's no schedule. Like just you've got the voice acting recorded. Just animate it and get it done right. Like people will
Yeah.
wait, and Netflix will, and the people that watch it on Netflix will watch it because they're not going anywhere. I wish that they would take just a little bit more time with that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm also keeping my eyes peeled. I'm only halfway through the season, but I'm looking forward to the Wizards series, which is going to be the third of the trilogy of series that comes out of Arcadia. So Wizards, we've kind of had an introduction to Wizards in Troll Hunters, but usually at the end of these seasons, or at least once in a season, there's some sort of like Easter egg or like throwaway character or moment that kind of points towards the next season or series. So I've been keeping my eyes peeled. And there's been a couple of hints, like Eli, this kid, he's got this wall of weird that he's got, like, push pins and pieces of yarn attached to, and he's connecting all these different things, trolls and aliens and wizards. And one of the things that he knows is happening in Arcadia is wizards. And so it's been brought up at least once so far in this season. So I'm curious to see if the crossover is going to happen like later this season, maybe next. But for what I can tell, there's 3 seasons of each show, with Troll Hunters, 3 Below, and Wizards. And so we're currently on season 2 of 3 Below. But the first season of Wizards is supposed to come out in 2019. So I don't see 3 Below season 3 coming out soon. Right? Like it's not, I don't see another season of 3 Below coming out in 2019. So I'm kind of curious as to when and how the Wizard crossover is going to happen. Maybe it's going to have more of a Troll Hunter vibe to it, but I'm not really sure. But I'm on board. I like them. They're fun. I mean, overall, despite a few little complaints here, they're very, very minor. It's a fun 22-minute kind of like, don't have anything to watch, no brainer. Go ahead and just give it a go. The only thing that I would suggest, though, is that I really feel like it's more fulfilling to watch 3 Below if you've seen Troll Hunters, because because one of the couple of the main human characters are in Troll Hunters, and their personalities would get less eye rolls and more of a lovable chuckle if you knew them better from Troll Hunters.
Troll Hunters.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking, because I saw that came up as a suggested thing on Netflix, and I was like, okay, like I might give this a go. I haven't been watching very much. Like I watched a couple episodes of things here and there. But have you watched Good Omens yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't had the opportunity. I should, though, because Amazon Prime has got like a big sale on this week, and I've been thinking about ordering.
I think it's over tomorrow.
Yeah, I want to see if I can get a new set of headphones, because I need some new audio equipment. And in the process, I thought maybe I'll sign up for Amazon Prime just to see if I can get some extra video to check out. And
it's really good. That's the only thing I've watched consistently in the last week.
Yeah, you watched
That's
it
pretty
again?
much it. Yeah.
So there's like a third viewing?
Maybe.
That's hilarious.
Maybe the fourth viewing.
Maybe the fourth. Wow. Okay. Well, I know
It's
that
really good.
I think Amazon Prime has got another Neil Gaiman show that I'm interested in. American Gods, apparently, is quite good.
So Colin's brother worked on that show. Colin's brother works in the film industry. Colin's my boyfriend. He works in his brother works as like a light guy, like a light board guy.
Okay.
On film sets. So he's worked on Handmaid's Tale. I think he's working on season 2 of The Umbrella Academy. But he also worked in the first seasons of American Gods. American Gods, that's what it is. And the show is good. I watched the first little bit with Bethley because it was another series of books that Bethley was really into. I don't think Neil Gaiman had as much of a hand in the production side of things as he did with Good Omens. So Good Omens is a very, very, very faithful adaptation, whereas American Gods is an adaptation and it's still good, but it's a lot of people said it wasn't perfect. Like it was still like they've kind of just tried to extend it past the books, which doesn't quite work as well in later seasons. Whereas Good Omens is a one-off novel. It's a one-shot, one and done. That's it. Clear defined end, but like an open-ended ending, which is kind of nice. I won't say anything else, but like it's fantastic. You would love Good Omens if you like British comedy in any way. If you like dry humor, it's for you. It's great. It's fantastic. That's probably like the most noteworthy thing that I watched. I watched like the first episode of Euphoria on Crave, which I didn't mind. It's definitely not for kiddos.
No, well, it's an
Definitely not for kids.
HBO show, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's produced by
Yeah.
HBO. Yeah.
It was the one exciting thing about the last episode of Game of Thrones because it was previewed before the last episode of Game
Right.
of Thrones. It's good. It's dark and gritty, but it's also surprisingly relatable in a really weird way.
Hmm.
The main character Rue, who's played by Zendaya. I don't know how to say her. I want to say Zendaya.
I think it's Zendaya.
Um, Zendaya. She's amazing in everything. Like she's MJ in the Spider-Man franchise right now,
I've
and
seen her.
she's
Yeah, I've seen her interviewed a few times. More so related to Spider-Man: Far From Home
yeah,
than the Euphoria. Although Euphoria was mentioned, I
yeah.
think the problem is that, of course, on primetime talk shows, or not primetime, but late night talk shows on network television, the subject matter of Euphoria, they really can't talk about it much.
They can't.
On
No,
on
it's
like
very like
she was on Colbert, and you're just kind of like he's kind of dancing around what the show is about. You kind of get the idea that it's kind of dark and gritty and
yeah.
challenging, and she's just kind of like nodding and nodding, and you can see the wheels turning in their heads. Like, what can we say about the show?
What can we talk about? But
Yeah.
no, it's good. Like it kind of, it quantifies some like thoughts I've had about my own existential anxieties in a weird way,
Mhm.
and Zendaya is just good, a good actor to begin with, and it's
She's
actually
very
diverse.
charming.
She's very charming. She's very very good, and it's actually really diverse casting. The show features a trans girl, and it's actually played by a trans actress, which is nice to see because that also doesn't always
Hmm.
happen. Um, but most of what I've been doing aside from Good Omens is working on the book in like relation to the whole conspiracy wall that you were talking about earlier. I've pretty much been doing the same thing. I don't know if you like if you follow me on Instagram, I've been posting photos of like my conspiracy wall for like all my plot point ideas for my book, and I've just been like plastering them all over the wall. Right now they're a lot more organized. They're color coded by type of moment, but eventually they're going to be done in chronological order of like, you know, narrative importance, I guess, or like yeah, how it's supposed to play out. And that's I'm trying to use that as a more visual way to find plot holes. Because as I was doing like my last hard copy of everything, it was um, kind of a mess. So I'm kind of starting from scratch again, and then gonna work out a better outline before I actually get to the proper writing stage of things because I was just getting lost and overwhelmed with all the detail that I was throwing in. So I was like, all right,
Mm.
let's quantify exactly what I want to try and get in each of these moments so that I'm not overtelling. Um, so at least that kind of gets the explanations and everything out of my system, and then I can just focus on telling the story
Nice.
afterwards.
It's funny. I was going to give you a
Um,
hard time because I saw one Instagram post, but it was only a part of the wall. I was like, those sticky notes are all the same color. That's not. And then a few moments later, I saw the other Instagram post, which was like, oh no, there we go. There are like four
there we
different
go.
colors on the
Yeah,
wall.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've taken mine down and I never put them back up because I had done the same thing for not so much in plotting, but in planning the last art book that I published. And
Mm,
in between then and now, I painted the studio, so of course I took all the sticky notes off the wall to do that.
right.
And I just haven't bothered to put them back up because, of course, the book was published. But it's really helpful to have that kind of a visual through line, just to kind of say like, okay, this is the first section, this is the third section, and this is what I have to do on it, and this is how like one might relate to the next and stuff like that. I mean, there's no narrative in the art book, but that there would be like for you with your story, but it's very helpful to get things visual. And for whatever reason, doing it digitally just does not have the same effect.
No, it's true. Yeah, I tried because I was like, I'm trying not to use a lot of paper. Like, I'm trying to avoid using as much paper product as possible because I'm trying to be environmentally conscious and being able to use a computer that saves millions of pages of documents in like a small little bit of nano information is pretty attractive to me, I think, for that reason. But yeah, like if you're not writing anything down, if you're not looking at anything in like a quantifiable, tactile sort of way, at least for me, I find that really stressful. Um, I realized like in this process, I was watching. I think I mentioned her before. This woman named Jenna Moresi. I don't know if I've mentioned her on the
Mm-hmm.
show,
Yep.
but she does like YouTube advice on like how to write a book. and she had this one idea for her outlining process, and she kind of went through it, and I was like, that actually sounds like a really good idea because I see everything as it plays out like a movie or a TV show. Like my mind is very, very visual, and having it in like a storyboard format feels a lot more I guess I'm it's easier for me to envision everything in order
Mm.
because I see everything in scenes, but at least now if I get everything in order, I can find where the holes are. Um, like actually physically see if there's something that should be there and there's no sticky note there, that's a hole I got to fill up, which is going to make the whole writing process way easier,
Mm-hmm.
infinitely easier. So I'm excited to dive into that a little bit more. I had a stroke of genius yesterday. So I was hanging with Alistair for a minute yesterday, and I was like, before we go anywhere, I have to sit down for 10-15 minutes and just write a bunch of stuff out because I just thought of something today while I was working. And he was like, all right, no problem. So we literally sat in front of this VR place that's in the mall, and I just like sat there and like just typed. And so people were like, are you okay? Like, do you need help? Or like, no, I just need to get some stuff down. Just and I felt bad because Alistair just sat there and was waiting for me forever. And I was like, thanks for your patience. Just give me a minute.
I never take that long because when I was writing, I was writing comic strips, but I would have to do that too. I would have an idea on a bus, and I have to pull out my phone and put it in a note. Remember where I put the note, email it to myself, something, and just be like, star-crossed idea, or I put something in the subject line that was very telling. It's like, hey, when you see this crop up in your inbox at home, flag it and write it down in the proper book that you don't have with you. Because I had kept all of my ideas for the comic strip in one book. I always found it easier to storyboard, and I always found it challenging when I was in school translating scripts. Like one of the exercises we had to do was take a script and then translate it into storyboards. And I always
I have no problem with that. That's my favorite thing.
I just find scripts are just so, when compared to a novel, they're just so empty. Like there's just so much like, dude enters the room. That's it. Like you're not going to tell me what the room looks like. Like there seems to be so little information. It also could have been a very poor script to use for that exercise. I don't know. It wasn't the best animation school that I went to, but I always found it better for me rather than writing out long descriptions, because I was the one also boarding my own comic strips. I would really write almost at the same time as I would do thumbnails and board, because it would affect the pacing, it would affect who would talk first, and I would need to kind of get that kind of stuff straight before I hashed out the dialogue. So it's almost like I would have a rough conversation in mind with a punchline, know where the punchline has to hit, and then kind of work backwards. But that's in a much smaller format, like you're talking 4 or 5 panels. Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to a longer sequence. But that's cool. I'm glad that you're making progress. And now is this in regards to the Heir of Keldonan? Like, is this where?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure people can look that up on the interwebs when they.
That'll be. I'll post that in the Internet Minute.
Yeah.
Or, the end, the closing thing. We're not even there yet.
Yeah. Well, we are at the Internet Minute, so we can break and talk about that. So for those of you that are new, this is where I take an opportunity to thank the people that support us on Patreon. The Citadel Cafe is completely listener supported. So if you're getting some value out of the show and you'd like to put a little bit of value back in, then you can head to patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. It is completely up to you. I'd like to point out that the base level is less than the price of a fancy coffee per month. So if you get a lot out of the show, then consider buying us a coffee. Megan doesn't drink coffee, but I can always buy her some fancy, spritzer drink or something from Starbucks. But yeah, so it's over at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. There are a number of perks. There is the Discord. We do some occasional bonus content, and we're looking forward to expanding this stuff. So if you have ideas, if you like the cafe and you're like, hey, this would be a really cool Discord, or not Discord perk, but a Patreon perk, then let me know. But right now, we are currently sitting at 20 patrons, and we're looking to increase that by 1 every month, and we're halfway through July, so there's only a couple weeks left to get up to 21 before we hit August. So by all means, head on over to patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe, and if you like us, then join the crew. It's completely up to you. So I have not 1, not 2, but 3 articles to share in the Internet Minute. One of them is too long and will not get a lot of attention because I'm not sure I fully understand it. But I did a little bit of digging. I found the decentralizing microgridding can provide 90% of a neighborhood's energy needs, study finds. Terrible, terrible headline. But it was an
Yeah.
interesting image, and it led me to dig into what is an off-the-grid modern eco-village in Denmark. And
I think I've heard of this before. I went on a spiel just looking up like sustainable homes one time a couple
mhm.
years ago, and I think I ended up seeing something about this. I didn't think they were able to stay off the grid though. I thought like the government was kind of weird about it.
So yeah,
But
in
carry
one
on.
of these articles, they go in and and explain some of the challenges and why it took 3 years to put everything together. But the Dutch off-the-grid eco-village called Ardenhuizen, or Earth Houses, it took over 3 years to build, and the people followed the Earthship principles. They used mostly recycled, reused, and locally sourced materials for construction. 23 houses, 70 people. Most of the people living in the area are families, and the mixture of low-tech building materials and high-tech energy systems provide the people with living here with an eco-friendly and sustainable environment. I believe the statistic is that they are 50% growing and eating their own food, and
That's cool.
solar provides 70% of the neighborhood's electricity needs. And then water is 100% sourced locally and recycled using green roofs and a halophyte filter and a bunch of other really cool stuff that's going to be a little bit too complicated to get into right here in the show. But essentially, like, you've got this combination of like heat pump, solar panel, thermal panel. You've got shared electronic cars. So it's not for everybody. Like, the lifestyle to get this kind of low impact, there's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made.
Yeah.
But like, there's a number of things here that could be learned and applied to the average neighborhood, and potentially have a lot of really interesting effects. Something that I really thought was cool was the idea of this microgrid, and I'll try my best to explain it. I'll have the full article in the show notes, but essentially the criticism of all of these electric vehicles and off the grid kind of benefits that people are doing, they're not always being used in the right way. So, yay,
Mm.
you bought an electric car. What are you plugging that into? The main grid? That's not helping anything. You're just putting more strain and more stress and stuff on that grid. It's better that you're doing lower emissions as a family. Awesome. But by hooking your car up to an electric grid to charge it, are you then creating more emissions because that grid has to work harder, right?
Yeah.
How is that grid powered? Is it? And it also depends on whether that's a coal grid. Is it a nuclear grid? Is it a hydro grid? Like, how is the grid getting its power? Whereas if your house has solar, wind, thermal energy stores, a community battery that you then charge the car off of. Well, that's different. You're not putting any strain on the system. You're taking it out of your own kind of like circular system. Circular system is
Yeah.
a term that they use a lot in this article. And the idea being that rather than these houses kind of like getting everything off of the grid and being independent by decentralizing and microgridding, and the microgridding conversation in this article gets very, very technical. It's mostly about the computer program that monitors how much energy each house is bringing in and using, and then just redistributing the excess into a local shared battery. Right? So,
Okay.
like, the car that you're sharing with three of your neighbors is being charged from the excess energy that your houses are not using. Right? So it's like power your home, save the excess, use it for perks, right? So that's
Right.
kind of how I got it. And it was kind of a really interesting idea. Now, some of the other community things in the village are things like sharing food. Like, there's a community garden, an herb garden, and different stuff that they have. There was a couple of other things that they had. as well. They look really cool as well. They're Earthship homes. So if anybody's ever seen those, they look
I
very much
love
like part of the
Earthship
hillsides.
homes.
Yeah, they're very cool looking.
It's like a combination of hobbit houses
Mm-hmm.
and like Spanish architecture. I don't really know how to explain it. I remember watching a bit of a documentary or like a series of videos that my favorite musician Lights put together, and she went to New Mexico to live for a brief time in an Earthship community, and it was amazing. They were beautiful. They were like some of the nicest houses I think I've ever seen because you can build them however you want, and they're not very expensive to build.
No, no, they're not. I mean, once you have the land, it's about using the whole idea is to use like local stuff. So they didn't bring in any materials from outside. I mean, the roofs
Right.
are not tiled; they're earth, they're grass, right? Because they want to
Hmm.
kind of minimize the impact. So in a lot of ways, they have kind of a modern look because there's a lot of poured concrete with the technology that we have now. You can create the shape in any shape that you want, and then you can just pour the concrete and then put dirt and grass on top of that. And obviously there's a bunch of systems underneath that to capture the water and things. But that's essentially how it goes. I find that sometimes they the ones showcased are almost a little bit too rustic for my kind of living
Mm,
tastes. A lot of times the ones that get the attention are the ones that are like 100% off grid and they do everything themselves and that kind of stuff. It feels an awful lot like kind of like cottage living at best. Whereas,
right.
there's a lot of middle ground. Like there's a lot of stuff that could be taken here. Like you could easily have an Earthship if you live just outside the city limits. You could easily have an Earthship home, and have it be uh, very close to a major city and not be like way out, and far from everything. Still be on a well, still be on your own power, with a windmill and some other stuff and some solar. I also noticed Denmark's not is a country that would experience all four seasons. So that I thought was
Mm,
interesting. A lot of times you see these Earthship homes being very successful in climates where there's no real winter, or at least not winter that we would know in Canada.
like New Mexico.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot easier to keep underground places cool than it is to keep them warm. And I think that was the other thing that they had in these Earthships homes in this village is they all have wood stoves as well, if I'm not mistaken. But one of the challenges that you mentioned earlier, when you said that you recalled that the government was giving them a problem, it was an old bylaw, and it was that all communities, so all villages, needed to be hooked up to sewer line and gas line. And so this community needed a sewer line because that's essential, but they didn't want a gas line. And the legislature was saying no, no, no. If you want to be recognized and funded and like receive recognition as a village and part of the country, then you need to have gas line. And they're like, no, no. This is completely against what we're trying to do. And not
Wow.
only after the 3 years did they eventually get their sewage line and what they wanted, but the Dutch government has completely flipped, and the legislation is now no longer you require to have sewage and gas. It's that you are required to not have gas. They're trying to phase out gas as a means to heat, as default, to heat homes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was like, so obviously the ear that was bent was convinced that this is the way that they have to move forward. It doesn't affect existing communities, but from what I can tell, from what I read, any new villages, any new developments, you have to figure out
Hmm.
an alternative way to heat the dwellings. Solar, wind energy, like have it be electric heat, but have that electric heat be generated by your own means or a local means. Like if you're developing a community and you have a large windmill, then that could power like 4 to 5 homes or something.
Yeah.
That kind of idea. I might be getting my stats wrong, but like that's the general concept. Anyway, it was a really interesting read, and it did not take very much googling or digging to kind of figure out where this village was and read a couple of articles on it. And I just thought it was worth sharing. It was really kind of fun.
That's amazing. Thank you. I love stuff like that. Like the solar punk kind of futuristic, eco-friendly homes.
Solar punk. That's awesome.
That just kind of came to my brain.
Someone should totally adopt that. That's way cooler than like, alternative off the grid energy power micro system. I can't even remember how long this headline was. Like it was just like, really?
Yeah, that was long.
You couldn't come up with a better thing to say call this article? Like, oh my gosh.
Solar punk. Actually, I think I saw that. I can't take the credit for that. I think I saw that on Tumblr at one point because everyone's like, it's not as cool as steampunk, and everyone's like, I disagree. Here's some reasons why solar punk would be really cool, and I just sort of stuck.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, if you want to see links to this and anything else that Megan and I have talked about today, the show notes are over at thecitadelcafe.com. The music for the show is composed by Kevin MacLeod. You can always email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. You can find us by name on Twitter and Facebook. You can subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. That includes iTunes, Android, Stitcher, and Spotify. But you know what? Sharing the podcast via word of mouth is the easiest and best way to support the show. It's free, and you can just go ahead and tell people. There are something like 700,000 podcasts in the world, and still the best way to share them with folks is to just poke a friend in the arm and say like, hey, this is really cool. You should listen to it. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I am doing online at joelduggan.com. That includes my illustration and design portfolio. Just drop me a line. If you'd like to hire me, I am open for business, so let me know. You can find me over at thespunchunks.com when I do a podcast every Monday about Minecraft with my friend Johnny. You can also find him at Pixel Riffs on most social media. He's a good guy to follow. Megan, where can people find you online?
People can find me online on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Megan Townsend. And if you want to follow the Heir of Keldonan, which is the project I was talking about earlier, you can find that on Instagram too. That's HEIR of OF Keldonan, KELDONAN.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.